सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति। Chapter 4, verse 26. The two yajnas, the two yajna of perception and yajna of self-restraint in relation to the senses. A clarification before I go into the verse. The voice of conscience can change with knowledge and reason, or in other words, the intellect or clarity being developed. If the voice of conscience changes with knowledge and clarity, then people with heightened intellect or ones with clarity gained through knowledge alone would have a conscience directing them in the right direction. Yes, it is correct. Only a person who has a heightened intellect with clarity alone, his conscience is guiding that person rightly all the time. There are three things that is always overlapping or confusing, not knowing on which we are functioning. One is the mind, the emotion. Second is the intellect. And the third one is the conscience. All overlaps one over the other so much that at some point of time, the human being is confused whether is it from the mind, or is it from the intellect, or is it through the conscience. There is a practical difficulty when it comes to these three things. So what one needs to understand is, yes, the voice of the conscience changes with knowledge and clarity. It changes with clarity. It changes with knowledge and clarity. When we say it changes with knowledge and clarity, the important factor here is the doubts decreases. There will be a conviction in the pursuit of the higher, where the confusion or the doubts of the mind is reduced. To put it very simply, in a classroom, if everybody is talking, you can experience this if you stand outside the classroom. Balcony, I always stand there sometime. In your balcony, in Chennai. Okay. The classroom is so close by. No, the school is so close by. Now, everybody is talking in the classroom. Now, you stand in the balcony, you only hear a noise. You don't hear anything. It is just a noise. If you go to the individual classroom, people are talking. The students are talking amongst themselves. But the noise is so much that you really can't hear what they are talking. Yeah. Now, this is what happens when the mind is making so much of noise and the voice of the conscience is not at all heard. Because of the noise made by the mind so much that the voice of the conscience is not heard clearly. First of all, it's not heard clearly.
Aravindan uncle, how do you define conscience first of all?
Yeah, I'm going to define that.
Okay.
It is not heard clearly. Even if it is heard clearly, the mind is not convinced to
act on it.
To obey that and act on it. Why? Because the noise of the mind is so much. The noise made by the mind is so much. Sometimes what happens is the noise of the mind itself becomes so powerful and it will imitate consciousness.
Right.
Because the first thing about the mind is this. Mind mimics intellect, mind mimics conscience. That's why it is dangerous.
Correct.
It will take the flavor of the conscience and pretend as though it is conscience. It will take the aspect of the mind and it will pretend as though it is the intellect. The mind does both. Now, to understand it very clearly, conscience, the definition of the conscience. The definition of the conscience is that which always points to the higher at that person's level. Everybody has a level of growth. So what is conscience? The conscience is that which points to something higher in relation to that person's level. So we have to understand conscience in relation to that person. When the person evolves in knowledge and understanding, when the person gains this clarity, when the person gains this knowledge and understanding, what happens is the higher goes on refining itself. The higher goes on refining itself, where he will go to the from a lower person's level. This may look very weird. This may look very weird, or it may look very funny itself, because the conscience points to higher in everybody, but the higher itself differs according to the person's maturity. A person will say, if he doesn't take care of the family, his conscience will prick him.
Right.
Another person's conscience will prick him if he says, why am I only concerned about my family all the time? Why can't it be something else? Why can't it be something else? But in everybody, the theoretical definition of conscience is, in everybody, it points out to something higher. And that higher will differ from person to person, dependent upon that person's clarity. So
until now, I had the wrong understanding that conscience was the voice of God or the voice of divinity from within you.
In a very general way, we call it as voice of God. In a very general way, we call it as voice of divinity, because in every human being, it points to something higher. Since in everybody, it points to something higher, in a very general way, we call it as, it is not wrong to call it as voice of God or voice of divine. It is the voice of divine. It is the voice of God, because it indicates something higher. Now, it is the clarity that has to take that voice, come up with logic and reason, and guide the mind to pursue that. Because the conscience will not give any reason, logic, anything. It says this is higher.
Right.
There is no logic, there is no reason to support all this. It says the direction, this is the higher. Now, it is the function of the clarity, it is a function of the intellect to take up that direction, come up with logic and reason to support that direction, so that the mind follows it.
Right. Because oftentimes the mind gives counter logic.
Yes, Yes, mind gives counter logic.
Right.
Because the higher is always, if the mind has to follow the conscience, means it has to give up its, it means the mind has to give up some of its conditioning, some of its something which it cherishes a lot, the mind has to give up.
Okay.
And that is always very uncomfortable to the mind.
True.
That the mind doesn't prefer to do. Therefore, what it does, it tries to circumvent the conscience or pretend as though it doesn't exist at all, or it will give some arguments to, like you said, counter argument it will give. But nevertheless, the conscience, the definition of the conscience is that which points to higher. In a highly selfish person, it will say, at least take care of the family. No, why are you using them for your happiness all the time? At least take care of the family. A person who has matured to that, it says, why only family? There is a welfare association also. Why not be a part of that? A person who has gotten there, it grows. It opens up a higher identification. Ultimately leading the person to the highest discrimination. So this is how it works. So how do you know whether the conscience is working? Conscience will simply say this is higher, will point the direction to higher. Anytime something higher comes to your cognition or recognition, it is the conscience playing. But there will not be any logic and reason to support it by the conscience. Conscience cannot do that. Just as the eyes can only see, it can't hear sound. The ears can only hear sound, it can't see colors. Similarly, the conscience can only show a direction. It can't give logic and reason to support that.
But I have one question, Aravind uncle. So the voice of the mind and the intellect come from limited equipments, whereas the voice, that is the conscience, comes from the infinite source. Then how can it improve with knowledge, or how can it change with knowledge? When something is coming from the infinite, it should be the same regardless of the condition, right?
Yes, that's why I said in the definition, in every human being, it points to something higher. Irrespective of that person's mind and intellect capacity, it points to something higher is the definition.
Right, but then it is subjective for each person according to this definition.
Yes.
So then how is it a voice of the absolute? Because the absolute is not subjective to each person. The Atman is the same. So the voice of the Lord should also be the same in everyone. So how is it now subjective because of the fact that you are of a lower faculty or you have lower intellect than the other person?
In every human being, the voice of conscience says, the voice of God says, recognize who you are. It says that. In every human being, irrespective of from a dreaded terrorist to the heightened awareness, the definition, the voice of conscience says the same. That doesn't differ. You are right. That will not differ at all. The voice of conscience will always point to the highest only. But we are using the word higher only to make it more palatable. If you go into the strict definition and understanding, I fully agree with you. The conscience only points to the highest. And it will not allow you to rest. Whatsoever you do in the terrestrial world, how much ever you become better and better and better in the terrestrial world, it still keeps saying, there is something higher, there is something higher, there is something higher. And where it will end only when you come to that point of taking that as the only driving force in life. So you are absolutely right. In every human being, it is the same. I was discussing it from the angle of how will a lay person distinguish it between the three. So even in a lay person, when it is saying he is not able to, or we call a person as a lay person because he is not able to pick the clue and direct all his action towards that pursuit. The pursuit of what we call as what we call as the pursuit of Brahma Vidya, or the pursuit of moksha itself. In every human being, it says this, irrespective of the culture, irrespective of the race, irrespective of the religious conditioning background that a human being comes from, it doesn't change at all. Very few are able to take it up and pursue that, and most don't hear it at all. Now Vedanta says at A level, you need some training to even listen to it. At another level, that becomes the only pursuit in life. So you are absolutely correct. In fact, the definition that I gave is a very loose definition, which is logically wrong. The definition that I gave in the first instance. Now, if you go into the detailed analysis and go to the depth of it in a very logical way, conscience is that which points not to the higher, the highest. And that doesn't differ from person to person. That is not subjective at all. That is purely universal. That is purely universal. That doesn't change at all. I was discussing it from the angle of how will a person be able to recognize it. So I brought in a relativity in relation. I was discussing this entire question of conscience in relation to the pilot still. Now, independent of anybody, now we don't bring any individual person at all. And per se, what is conscience? Per se, what is conscience? Per se, conscience is that which points to the highest. Per se, conscience is that which points to the highest.
So this relative higher that he's hearing, that each person is hearing according to their level of growth, is that relative higher coming actually then from the conscience, or is it actually just your intellect telling you that this is
intellect, gross intellect?
Okay.
It is intellect that is saying.
Okay.
It is intellect that is saying. It is not the conscience. Technically speaking, now I am discussing conscience per se and I am answering from that angle.
Okay.
Technically, it is not conscience at all. It is the intellect. That is why we say in the initial stages, you need a strong intellect. Don't worry about
hearing the voice of conscience.
Yes. Don't worry about conscience and all a lot. Let us develop our
intellect.
Let us develop our intellect first. Because it is that heightened intellect which would be able to hear it faster and pursue that. So, per se, from this angle, yes, it is not the conscience that is saying. Per se, conscience doesn't say anything at all. It simply indicates a direction. Higher. It doesn't even say anything. It is what in the one of the commentaries, the example that is used for the conscience is like a mariner's compass. The direction is shown, one direction. The intellect picking it up from that one direction, the intellect instantly knows all other directions. Shankaracharya gives this example. The man who is lost in the forest, the man who is lost in the desert, or a person who is lost in the forest, you show him, you tell him, this is north. That one knowledge that this is north is enough for him to instantly know what is south, what is east, what is west, northeast, southwest. Everything becomes known by that one knowledge.
Correct.
That one is conscience. That one is conscience. But to pick it up, the gross intellect has a very vital role to pick it up in the sense of, it has to say, the moment it hears it as north, it instantly needs to know south, east, west, northeast, southwest. It can make a plan to go, and then when it hits a crossroad of not knowing what direction to take, now all the functioning is done by the intellect. So in the initial stages of spiritual evolution, the role of intellect will be more. The role of intellect will be more. That is why we say, let us focus on the intellect a lot in the initial stages.
Right. Because the intellect helps you purify, and then there comes a point wherein the voice of the conscience is so loud that the intellect doesn't need to really majorly analyze it anymore and falls in line with the voice of the conscience.
Exactly correct. Exactly correct.
Okay. Yeah.
The intellect has purified itself so strong, so purified it is that just the voice of the conscience is enough.
Sorry.
Gautam Buddha talks about it in a beautiful way. He says, there are 3 types of horses, Ananda, he says. There are 3 types of horses, he says. Ananda is his chief disciple. There are 3 types of horses, Ananda. One horse will move only when it is whipped. Another horse moves with the crack of the sound. The whip sound is enough. The highest quality horse, Ananda, the shade of the whip is enough, he says. The shade of the whip is enough. Now, the shade of the whip is the heightened awareness, where the person need not do anything at all. Just the shade of the whip is enough. Now, conscience is that. Now, a person who's evolved to that height. Beautiful example he gives. Buddha talks about using the example of the horses. 3 types of horses, Ananda, he says. I tell you, beautiful example. The way he put it so simply. 3 types of horses, Ananda, he says. One is the lowest category horse. Eduthu whip pannana, it will move. Very tamasic in nature. The tamas is so much, the ignorance is so much that it needs to be beaten. Then only it will kind of move. The better quality horse, Ananda, you don't whip it, but the sound is enough. Clear? Kamalasan paatu padra mari and the sound kuttale porum. The maadu oda arambichirum. Clear? Adikella maata. The sound ke oda arambichirum. Buddha goes to the 3rd example, 3rd level. He says the high quality horse, the best quality horse, Ananda, is what? The shadow of the whip is enough. It behaves itself properly. It means the gross intellect has refined and purified so much that just the conscience saying higher is enough. It's enough. Seriya? Is it okay?
Yeah.
I took it up first because it is something that is relevant for everybody. This clarity between the mind, the intellect, and the conscience. It's very, very important to know. Otherwise, what happens is we always mistake one for the other and whip ourselves unnecessarily. We will whip ourselves unnecessarily. We will beat ourselves unnecessarily, or we will have the arrogance of believing that I am pursuing the the conscience, whereas I may be highly grossly selfish and self-centered. All this confusion can be so much. Seriya? Seriya? Sriram? Yeah. Vijay, can we say in absolute sense consciousness equals self? At any point of time, we cannot make an equation and say this equals self. It will not be done. In a very loose way, we can say yes. In the absolute sense, consciousness equals self can be said in a very loose way. But in a very strict Vedantic sense, no words can give us this definition of equals self. Why? Because conscience is that which we are able to conceive. Brahman is that which is inconceivable. Therefore, never make that mathematical equation absolute level. Yes, in a figurative way, in a loose way, we can say that, but not in the strict sense, because Brahman is inconceivable. Now, don't make the mistake of saying inconceivable as a conceivable definition. Inconceivable means that which cannot be known at all in that sense. Because most of the people, what they have done is, we know what God is, sir. What? Inconceivable. No. Now, we fall into the trap of the logic. Conceivable itself can become a conceivable definition. Because I say, I have conceived the inconceivable. How is it possible? Yeah, are you able to follow? Therefore, anything equals self is not the right thing at all. You should never say equal self. You can say indicator. Yeah. Mohan, guide us how to strengthen the intellect whenever possible. Mohan, not whenever possible. 7:45 length, 9 o'clock varaikkum, week after week, textbook after textbook, we are only trying to do this. Develop ana mardan terla. But this is what we are trying to do all the time. All through these classes and all that, we are only attempting to strengthen the intellect.
Okay.
Yeah. With this, I move on to the discussion of 12. Here, Mohan, I'm able to see you now. Yeah. In all the classes, our aim is only that.
Sure.
So, whenever possible, and all the time, 24/7, 365 days, our breath is only to
strengthen the intellect.
Seriya?
Thank you.
For 50 verses of Arjuna's discussion, Krishna has to give 650 verses of logic and reason. It takes that much of time to strengthen the intellect. It takes that much. See, for Krishna's clarity, 650 verses of idallam kudukunundra avashyame illa. He could have straight away. He could have straight away said, "This is it. Either follow it or either take it or leave it." You could have, but intellect will not get strengthened like that. It needs constant repetitive reinforcement. Constant repetitive reinforcement, as in not as a mechanical repetition or brainwashing, through logic and reason. Okay? Yeah. Back to the text Bhagavad Gita. Abada Venkat text bandutana. Clear. Back to the text. That doesn't mean don't ask questions. Questions alla illa both time fill pandradhukku da we do a text. If there is no questions, everybody will keep looking at me. I will keep looking at you now. What to do? So adu or text we start using the text. In Vedanta, the sanctity is always to the question. That is why we give a lot of preference to the question. The sanctity is always to the question. Why? Because each and every question, one ray of ignorance is getting removed. In each and every question, one layer of ignorance is removed. It's like removing, it's like peeling onions, one after the other. That's why utmost sanctity is given to the questions. Answer is never given that sanctity. It is the question that is given that. It is always the question that is given that sanctity. Why? Because the answer can be wrong sometimes. There cannot be a wrong question. There can be a wrong answer. Because in that question, the sanctity is to, there is a thirst, there is a seeking, there is something that is pursued in that question. And the end, all Vedantic Shastras, if you look at it, it will be always in the form of question and answers. Why? Because it is not trying to teach a textbook, it is trying to remove the ignorance. The idea is not, they are not interested in teaching the textbook called Bhagavad Gita. The knowledge Vedanta per se is not the interest. The interest, the purpose is removal of ignorance. So questions always would be taken up with the sanctity, and it would be dealt with in detail. Sometimes a questioner tells me, "Sir, na ivulala kekave illa sir, simple ketta avladhan. Why you went into so much of things? I never asked so much. In fact, ivulala na kettanane enak theriyala." In fact, of the 10 people who ask questions, 8 are like this only. But then it is used as an opportunity to explore the deeper layers. சரியா? ஏன் இவ்வளவு சொல்றேன்னா நான் என்னைய ஜஸ்டிஃபை பண்ணிக்கிறதுக்கு இவ்வளவு சொல்றேன். Why all this is done? Verse number 26 talks about the yajna. Verse number 26 talks about the two types of yajna. The two types of yajna, which is yajna number 3 and yajna number 4. Yajna number 3 is the yajna of perception as offering. The yajna of perception is offering of the stimuli into the fires of the senses. Remember, two words we use, ahuti and kindling. Ahuti and kindling. So in every yajna, there has to be an ahuti and there has to be a kindling. What is ahuti in yajna number 3? The stimuli is the ahuti there. The perception is kindled. Yajna number 3 is in relation to one specific sense organ you can take and practice. That is yajna number 3. Yajna number 4 is all the 5 senses you take together and practice the same yajna. So the difference between yajna number 3 and yajna number 4 is yajna number 3 is related to one sense organ. You can start with practicing this yajna in relation to one sense. Yajna number 4 is in relation to all the senses together. Like if you have practiced one well, you can immediately transfer it to all the perceptions. To put it simply, you start with taking one sense perception. The example that he hears is Shrotradin. Why they always talk about Shrotradin is because, like even Kenopanishad starts with Shrotrasya Shrotram. Even here they talk about Shrotradin. Why instead of seeing, why they take hearing as the if you see, they always tend to take hearing as an example. Like the Kenopanishad, he says, Shrotrasya Shrotram. Here he is saying Shrotradin. Normally, when in an example, we always give seeing as a sense perception. Here he takes hearing as a sense perception. What is the difference? In the Shastras, the hearing is always given an extra value. Why? The entire knowledge is called Shruti, that which is heard. That which is heard. So there is a sentimental, there is a devotional, when I say sentimental means devotional. There is a devotional attitude also to it. Shrotra Deen Vishayananye Samyamagnishu Juhvati. So he says, take one perception like hearing and you practice this yajna. What is this practicing yajna? When you hear a sound, two possibilities. When you hear a sound, two possibilities. What is the possibility? What are the two possibilities? You can get involved in what you hear, or you can try to remember that which is enabling you to hear. Two possibilities. Whenever a sense perception happens, you have a possibility. What is the possibility? One is you can get carried away by what you hear. Another is you can try to remember, you can try and consciously make an effort to remember that which is enabling you to hear. What I hear versus what enables me to hear. When the focus shifts to what enables me to hear, yajna is what enables you to hear? The Brahman, the reality. Therefore, yajna becomes possible there. If you get carried away in what you hear, what happens? Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya, Bhaya and all that starts, and you will get carried away by all that, as a result of which what happens? The reality, the highest is forgotten. Therefore, yajna number 3 is to take up one sense organ and you practice. In yajna number 4, what happens is the next level. Yajna number 3, you practice. What do you practice? When you hear a sound or when you register a sight, two possibilities. What are the two possibilities? You can get carried away by what you see, or you can ask yourself, what is it that is enable me to see? So that recognition of that enabling factor and not get carried away by what you see, hear, smell, taste, touch is yajna number 3. Yeah. Now what is yajna number 4? Yajna number 4 is when all these perceptions goes and registers in the mind. If you remember a few classes back, I gave this analysis. Sense perceptions enter and it reacts with the mind that has something in it already. What is it that the mind has something in it already? The likes and dislikes. Now it reacts with these likes and dislikes, and a process starts. What is the process? The process of what is known as cut chewing. The process of what is known as cut chewing, or technically it is called lingering. Yajna number 4 is the perception is registered, but after the perception is registered, After the experience is over, you practice self-restraint. What is practicing self-restraint in yajna number 4? Self-restraint is not allowing lingering to happen. It is not stopping the perception. It is not avoiding the perception. It is avoiding it is avoidance of what is known as the reliving, the mental reliving, the mental lingering. Why we talk about this mental reliving and lingering is because you develop this raga dvesha only by the reliving. You develop this raga dvesha only by lingering. That's why the Shastra says perception ends with perception. Now you should not ask how lingering creates raga dvesha, sir. That you should not ask. Why you should not ask that? Verse number 62, 63, that process is already explained. That process is already explained in verses 62, 63 of chapter 2. Chapter 2 we studied long back and we don't even remember that. Don't worry. Every few verses in any textbook that we do, we keep referring to these two. Bhajagovindam Pannalu, we keep referring to these two verses. Atma Bodha Pannalu, we keep referring. Fall of Human Intellect, Vedanta Treatise, Upanishad, Bhagavad Gita. Don't worry. At least in Bhagavad Gita, we should know how to connect. What is the connection? How the mental lingering develops the desire. The process is explained. It all starts with a single thought, he says. It all starts with a single thought. Dhyayataha. Dhyayataha. Dhyayato vishayan pumsaha. Sangasteshu upajayate. Sangat sanjayate kamaha. Kamat krodho vijayate. Krodhat bhavati sammohaha. Sammohat smriti vibramaha. Smriti bramshat buddhinashaha. Buddhinashat pranashyati. The dhyayataha, the mental lingering, the mental reliving, where it will end? Buddhinashat, smriti bramshat buddhinashaha, buddhinashat pranashyati. Pranashyati na destruction. Pranashyati means complete destruction, total destruction. So here he is saying how to avoid that itself. How to avoid that? As long as the senses are alive and as long as you are living life, you cannot prevent the stimuli from entering you. Number one. Number two, in all your interactions of life, you need to allow the stimuli to enter you also. Therefore, the problem is never with the stimuli. What is the problem? Where lies the problem? The problem is with the mental reliving. What is the mental reliving? That is where the Upanishads gives this. I told you, Shastras always take simple examples to explain all this. The word Govinda. The word Govinda, the entire senses, the mind, how the registration of perceptions happens, and all that is explained in this word called Go. The Sanskrit word Go, not English Go. The Sanskrit word Go. Gau. Gau na plural. Cows. Singular na Go. The name for Krishna is Govinda. Inda means the master of the cows. Because he was a cowherd boy, no. He all the time chasing the cows, no. All the time chasing the cows. Where is he? Where does he chase the cows back? What does the master of the cows do? Two things he does. One is he allow the cows to, he will allow the cows to graze. Another thing he does is he takes the cows back to the safe place. Correct? Huh? So master of the cows, now two things it does. What are the two things? First thing is you need to allow the cows to graze. And where the cows are allowed to graze, adukku per gochara. Where the gochara means, yeah, Tamil la solnunna mera yadam. Yeah. Maadu mera madri meyada, they say, no? Goes. The cow grazes first. Now, what does grazing means? It contacts the respective, it contacts the world, receives the respective stimuli. Go, cows. From the example of the cow, the entire process of self-restraint is explained. So, self-restraint, ejnala nyapam vechikkalana kuda, maadu nyapam vechikkitta podum. Rajavel. The whole thing you will be able to, win. So what the master of the cow does, he allows the cows to graze. Where all it should not go, it will go. And get it. So what he does, as he is allowing the cows to graze, he keeps a watch on the grazing. And then when the required grazing is done, guide them back. And when he guides them back, what the cows do and the total what will the cows do? It brings back the grass and starts cut chewing. This cut chewing should not happen. What is this cut chewing? The cut chewing is what is referred to Indra. The word, the Sanskrit word Indra refers to the mind. Indriyani Raja, the king of the senses, the master of the senses, as in the one who directs the senses for its own enjoyment and satisfaction is Indra. And that Indra also has to be kept under. And that Indra, because Indra has jealous, no? The king of God. We all have read some Puranic stories, no? That's why I'm giving all this example. We find the god of Indra feeling jealous, angry, disturbing. Who will Indra disturb? Who will Indra feel jealous about? Who will Indra feel jealous about? Who will Indra wants to go and disturb? The sages, the rishis. Why? Because they are doing tapas. They are doing tapas to master. That's why you find when Vishwamitra was doing tapas, Indra sent Menaka. Why? Because the moment you do tapas, Indra becomes weak. The moment you do tapas, Indra becomes weak. And Indra will not like it. Because mind will not like to become weak. No, mind always wants to be the master. Where the mind likes to. Therefore, what happens? When the Indra wants to take over, by the continuing process of tapas, self-restraint is achieved. Now, what is self-restraint? Not allowing the cut chewing to happen. What is cut chewing means? Mentally reliving the experience. The mental reliving of that experience is what cut chewing is. That should be avoided. Why that should be avoided? Because that is how Ragadvesha, that is how Ragadvesha is created, Ragadvesha develops, and the moment Ragadvesha is created, developed, you lose your control. You lose your control means the intellect will lose its control. You lose your control, the intellect will lose its control, and when the intellect has lost its control, buddhi nashat pranashyati. When the intellect is gone, you are completely destroyed. So yajna number 4. Yajna number 3, you try to remember the divine through one sense organ. Yajna number 4, you practice it in relation to the restraint part. What is the restraint part here? Not allowing the lingering to happen. Not allowing the mental lingering to happen. From this, what do you understand? Perceptions by themselves are not dangerous. The sense organs contacting the sense organs contacting the respective sense objects per se is not dangerous. Therefore, there is no need to suffocate and there is no need to fear them. But what you need to understand is the difficulty starts with mental lingering. How to avoid this mental lingering? How to avoid this mental lingering? Mental lingering you avoid when, okay, lingering happens only, when lingering happens most of the time, you'll be feeling little bit sleepy, but not really sleepy where you can fall off to sleep. You will go and lie down and close your eyes, and what will happen? It will go for cut chewing will start. Cut chewing will start. Amkada cut chewing will start. What is the cut chewing? What happened today? What should have happened and what should not have happened? It tries to relive those experiences and creates raga dvesha. So what he says is experience it, but do not allow the mind to relive that. Per se, up to the experience point, there is no difficulty. The difficulty starts when you start. The difficulty starts when you begin to linger upon it. What is lingering? The senses are not contacting it, but the mind is imagining the contact. That is lingering. The senses are not contacting it. I drink a payasam today. Yeah, I drink a payasam today. Then a payasam. The payasam that I had 20 years back is the real payasam. It has. Yeah. Badri keeps saying that. Idella in a breakfast, every Sunday breakfast. Before COVID-19 வந்ததுக்கு முன்னாடி நாங்க எடுத்துக்கோமே breakfast. அதுதான் real Badri, correct? How many times? Tell me the truth. How many times the mind would have? How many times the mind would have? Other that is that experience only we both have. Yeah. Badri, have you ever noticed Jayanti will never drink that kanji? Have you ever observed that? Jayanti will never drink that kanji. Why? Because Jayanti is not in that state. Jayanti is not in that state. Jayanti will never drink that kanji. Why? Because Jayanti is not in that state. Jayanti will never drink that kanji. Why? Because Jayanti is not in that state. Jayanti will never drink that kanji. Why? Because Jayanti is not in that state. Jayanti will never drink that kanji. Why? Because Jayanti is not in that state. Jayanti will never drink that kanji. Why? Because Jayanti is not in that state. Jayanti will never drink that kanji. Why? Because Jayanti is not in that state. Jayanti will never drink that kanji. Why? Because Jayanti is not in that state. Jayanti will never drink that kanji. Why? Because Jayanti is not in that state. Jayanti will never drink that kanji. Why? Because Jayanti is not in that state. Jayanti will never drink that kanji. Why? Because Jayanti is not in that state. Jayanti will never drink that kanji I have observed that. She will only give it to you and me. She has never. Yeah. I used to hide and see also. She never. She will put it in the. Something so how many times the mind would have lingered on that? You follow what I'm saying? As one experience happens, the mind tendency is to relive some other experience. As I am experiencing one, the mind goes to relive some other experience. Why the mind relive some other experience? Because it doesn't know how to derive the joy from the current experience. That's the training. That's what self-restraint is all about. Self-restraint is the training by which you get maximum joy while you are experiencing it, so that you don't have to relive it at all. That's where the great man says, we enjoy maximum. We think the wise people are all doing lot of tapas and they are all are suffering. We are the one who are enjoying. No, they turn back and say, we are the one who knows how to enjoy fully. Because in every experience, we are present in that experience so fully that the experience is complete. The experience is complete. When the experience is complete, the satisfaction itself doesn't allow the reliving to happen. Now, what causes the reliving now? Are you able to follow? What causes the reliving? A partial experience. A partial experience. Why the partial experience is because mind is not fully available to experience anything. Mind is always partially available for everything. Partial availability means one part of it will be here, the other part of it will be elsewhere. So for whatever joy that is left over, it tries to catch up by imagining that, by reliving that. So what is yajna of self-restraint? Yajna of self-restraint is awareness of this process. What is awareness? How to be present in an experience fully, so that the satisfaction of that experience is complete. The mind doesn't feel the necessity to relive. Most of the time what happens? We tend to make the mistake of reliving that experience. In that mental reliving starts how the mental reliving happens. The ayataha vishayan pumsa. I'm not getting into that part now, because that part of it is already explained. So, what causes reliving? Partial experience. Partial experience causes reliving. What is partial experience means? Have you ever observed some of the people, they follow a discipline, no? When they eat, they will not talk. When they sit to have a meal, they will not talk. Why? Because that experience has to be, when there is no other distraction, that experience is complete. When you sit for puja, you don't do anything else. When you sit for a movie, when you have decided to sit and watch a movie, you sit and watch it completely, because you have chosen to do that. No, there is nothing wrong in choosing that. But where comes the difficulty is not in choosing that experience. The difficulty, the problem starts is in that reliving. The cause for reliving is partial experience. Now, how to experience anything completely? How can you have a full experience of anything? You can have a full experience of anything only when the senses are participating, the mind must be present there. We have seen an animal eating, no? A human being can never get the satisfaction of eating like how the animal gets it. Because what is wrong in eating? It's not it is not a wrong experience to it, but then the entire personality should be in it. Okay, another example I'll give you. Have you seen children getting angry? No. Small children, they get angry, and when they get angry, they look so cute, and you feel like hugging them and kissing them, and they'll get more angry also. Why? Because you are not taking their anger. You are not taking their anger seriously. When the child gets angry, the mother feels so. Why? See, what is the cuteness in that? When the child is angry, it is just anger personified. That's all. It is so full in that anger. It is so complete in that anger that looks so. So any experience, if you are in it fully, it is complete in itself. But mind makes you to be in every experience partially. How do you know that? That is why in the definition of the mind, I always say mind is that which divides. Mind is that which divides. It divides. One part of you will want it, another part of you will not want it. One part of you will say it is good, another part in you will say it is bad. It is this nature of the mind that is to divide causes us difficulty. Now remember, nature of the mind doesn't mean it is right. Because whenever we use the word nature, I have cautioned it any number of times. Whenever we use the word natural nature, we tend to believe that it is right. To feel jealous is natural. Doesn't mean jealous is right. No. It's like this. So when an experience is happening, the mind brings in and divides. What is the division? See, mind can function only through division. Divide and rule policy is of the mind. Because only in division it can exist. That's why if you notice, even the body it divides into two. Even the body is divided into two. What is the division? Right hand is holy, left hand is unholy. Yeah. Upper part of the body is holy, lower part of the body is unholy. Yeah? If it is unholy, why? Why even have it? But then this division is the function of the mind. This division is the function of the mind. And in every sense perception itself, the mind comes and plays its role of division. What is the division? As I am eating, why not just eat it fully? That's what Krishna says. Experience it fully so that the possibility of reliving will not happen at all. But what the mind does, the nature of the mind is to divide. This aspect of the mind has to be understood very clearly. Then only it will be easy to understand this. What is the mind? The mind is that which? The division. That is why any object you buy, it divides. Sir, in the phone, sir, this is a very, very good phone, very nice phone, but the rendu features it has to divide everything into two. And how does it divide? What is the basis of division? The basis of division is I like it, I don't like it. This is right, this is wrong. This is good, this is bad. The mind divides it like this. And this division of the mind makes it, this division of the mind makes it this division of the mind reinforces the likes and reinforces the existing likes and dislikes, or create more likes and dislikes. Therefore, what do you understand from all this? The experiences are not the problem. That is why in the name of self-restraint, in the name of self-control, you need not avoid the contact. You need not avoid the contact. You need to avoid the reliving. You need to avoid the reliving, but you need not avoid the contact. But sir, கொஞ்ச நேரத்துக்கு முன்னாடி போன வாரம் அதுக்கு முந்தின வாரம் என்னலாமோ sense control பத்தி you spoke so much that also has to be practiced. Now that sense control also has to be practiced so that you don't become dependent on the contact. I use the air condition, but I don't become dependent on the air condition. The dependency is what we spoken of, the dependency of the senses to the comforts is what we spoke as the sense control. Now when we are talking about restraint, we are saying the restraint is not because of the restraint doesn't mean restraining from the contact. Restraint means restraining from the reliving. Restraint means restraining oneself from the reliving. When you are practicing this self-restraint, you are practicing yajna number 4. So yajna number 3 is sense control at the level of the senses. Yajna number 4 is practicing restraint. Practicing restraint. What is practicing restraint? Whatsoever the experiences are, do not relive that. Are you okay till now? Now, carefully follow. Mind has this tendency to relive the negativities a lot. You have had painful experiences in life and you have blissful moments in life. Somebody has done something good to you. How long can you keep saying thanks? Somebody has hurt you. How long the mind relives that? Are you able to see the difference? See, somebody has done something good to you. He has done good to me. Thank you. Atoda the mind doesn't even want to remember it again. But somebody has used one if somebody has used one negative word, somebody has done something wrong, how much the mind remembers that? It means how much and every time the mind remembers it, the mind relives it with the same intensity. The mind relives it with the same intensity. Yeah. அதனால தான் எவ்வளவு திருப்பி கொடுத்தா கூட இன்னும் கொடுத்திருக்கணும் சார், they will say. அது இன்னைக்கு நல்ல 4 மெட்ராஸ் பாஷையில 4 ஃபவுல் வேர்ட் யூஸ் பண்ணி திட்டின, ஆனா அந்த 4 வார்த்தை பத்தாது சார் அவங்களுக்கு. 5வது வார்த்தையும் சொல்லி இருந்திருக்கணும். அடுத்த சான்ஸ்ல I will use the 5th word also. Are you able to follow? Mind is that which divides, and it has a natural affinity towards that which is, and it has a natural affinity towards that which is negative by nature. That is why thank you will be said in one word and forgotten. Anger and frustration will carry. In fact, for generations it will carry, no, sometimes. Parambara Vairi, sir, they say, no. Enemies for generations. Enemy. One grandfather would have fought with another grandfather, and they will continue the enmity into the grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and everything, no? Why? Because we are all, yeah. And the Romeo Juliet, and the two families are like that, no? In the Shakespeare's play Romeo Juliet, the two families were like that. One grandfather said something to two grandfathers in the drunken state. They said something to each other. Yeah, and they continue. Why? Because the mind divides. The mind dividing it itself is a complication. On top of it, it has an affinity to that which is. It has an affinity to that which is negative by nature. Yeah. That is why even the joy of the mind is what? Yeah, even the joy of the mind. Yeah. See, even our humor shows the negativity, no? When one fellow will get beaten up by 20 fellows, bruising and battered and all that, that is our entertainment, no? Huh? Yeah. Vadivelu will get beaten up, and that is our entertainment. Yeah. Senthil will get beaten up from Countermoney. That is our. So even our entertainment carries the shade of that. Why such a no? That's why it's called the dirt of the mind, the mala, the dirt, which has to be purified. Which has to be purified. Clear. ரொம்ப நாள் தேங்க்யூ எல்லாம் சொல்லினே இருந்தா ஏமாத்திடுவாங்க. அதனால ஏதோ நல்லது பண்ணாங்க, அதுக்கு I say thank you and I move on in life. Vedanta comes and says, move on with negativities, stay with gratitude. Move on with negativities and stay with gratitude. This staying with gratitude is bhakti. This staying and remembering the good things that has happened to you is bhakti, and moving away and forgetting the negativities is self-restraint. Now, if you have to practice self-restraint, I need to know the mind, and I need to know what is the nature of the mind that I am trying to practice, that I am trying to control. No, that's why so much of analysis I am doing. That's why so much of explanation I am giving. What is it? The mind is that which divides. And in the division of the mind, it can survive. Why? Because only in division it can constantly complain. It can constantly keep complaining. It can constantly worry. It can constantly do all the things that it is doing only when it is complaining. That is why we say, be contented. Na, immediately our problem is, sir, if we say, yeah, contentment on that, apre growth varum. So even our growth has to be driven by a discomfort or a complaint. That is why how much ever growth we attain, the mind's agitation still remains the same. So everywhere the mind plays its role. So self-restraint is, what is self-restraint? Self-restraint is taking care of this. What is taking care of this? Yoga of sense control is not becoming dependent on the senses. The senses do not become dependent. Yeah, the senses do not become dependent. So you consciously ensure that the senses don't become dependent. What does it mean? Yeah. Okay, it is okay to sweat for a while. Konja vertha it is okay. You don't have to switch on the AC all the time. You don't become dependent on it. We are not saying not to use it, but not to become dependent on. Why? Because the dependency will drive you to do any action at some point of time. The moment you become dependent, this dependency will drive you to do anything. Example, addiction. When a person is addicted to it, they will start stealing, no? They will start stealing, they will start doing, in fact, they go to the extent of murdering. For 2,000, 3,000 rupees, they commit murder also. Why? Addiction. Because the dependency. So the dependency will drive you to extreme actions. So at the starting point itself, do not allow the senses to become dependent. Is sense control. Now what is self-restraint? When the senses, when the stimuli enters and the experience is complete, do not allow the mind to relive that. And what is this reliving? What is this reliving means? The reliving means of the reliving means how much the mind, because of the partial experiences, it tries to relive. Just as the cut chewing. What is cut chewing means? I said cut chewing, no? It has not digested fully. Partial digestion. Partial digestion, it brings it back, digest fully. Now, it is okay for the cow to do. Mind should not do that. Mind should not do. For in that cut chewing, what it does, it doesn't digest it properly. It intensifies the existing raga dvesha or creates new raga dvesha. Therefore, the advice here is yajna number 4. Practice restraint. Yajna number 3 is sense control. Yajna number 4 is senses control in the form of self restraint. These are the 2 yajnas. Why we call it as yajna is because the purpose for which you do it makes it called yajna. You can be a disciplined, ordinary disciplined person, or you can aspire to develop discipline for the sake of liberation. Now, discipline will be turned into yajna only when that connect happens. Only when that connect happens. I can go to the gym and exercise and wanting to be fit. That is one level, which is better. It will be called as yajna when it is consciously dedicated to the goal of what is yajna number 1 or yajna number 2. Yajna number 1 or yajna number 2. Yajna number 1 or 2 na limited ideal or absolute ideal. Yajna comes into the play when all this is directed to the highest ideal. Why do I have to exercise and keep myself fit? It's not the fear of the disease. It is not the fear of death. It is not fear of all that. Apyayantu mamangani vak pranas chakshu shrotramato bhalam indriyani cha sarvani. The Upanishad says. The indriyas must be with balam, must be with strength. Why? Because with this vitality, pursuit of moksha is possible. Otherwise, I have to waste my time attending to the back pain, attending to the sciatica, attending to the sinuses, attending to this, attending to that. Therefore, sense control it's called as yajna, because always remember all disciplines will be called as yajna only when it is connected to the goal of moksha. If it is not connected to the goal of moksha, it is a wonderful discipline and it has a very limited effect. But you cannot call it as yajna. Here he is using the word yajna to everything because the purpose here is the highest ideal, not the limited ideal, the absolute ideal. Yajna number 3 and yajna number 4. There is a clarification. I am taking it up. Yajna number 3 and 4 is over. Whoever wants to log out can log out. The class is over. I am just taking the I'm just taking the clarifications now. The clarification is in relation to lingering. Sriram. But if lingering of, say, a joyous experience is restricted or at least moderated by a restraint mandated by, say, a rigorous religious practice without the fire or desire to seek the higher, it can lead to a life with no flavor, boredom and frustration. Correct. That is why all the disciplined people at some point of time get very, very bored and frustrated with their disciplines. In fact, there is a bitterness in them. You can see a bitterness in them. They will not be able to stand anybody enjoying anything. Yeah, Adam bitterness. They will not be able to stand anybody enjoying anything. If they enjoy a pizza, they will say, in the pizza la saapda kudadu. Yeah, they can't stand anybody enjoying anything. Why? Because there is no higher purpose to their discipline. Perfectly correct. Rather, when the intellect tells you there is a greater joy to be attained through the act of restraint, it then becomes an enjoyable act. Perfectly correct. Then only it becomes an enjoyable act. Then only it becomes an enjoyable act. Or does restraint by itself, without this intense feeling of seeking the higher, gives the person a relative benefit of a more peaceful life? It will give you a peaceful life relative for a relative period of time. But merely the restraint, he has not mentally detached from it, since he has not attached to the higher. Is my understanding correct? Sriram, you are perfectly correct. And the higher road attached panlanna, over a period of time, the very discipline itself will become a frustration, because the senses are still demanding it. The mind is still demanding it. The mind has not yet tasted anything higher. Since there is no higher direction, the very discipline over a period of time gets very frustrated. Like, example, the person takes up to exercises. Gym, they go to gym and all that very intensely, very seriously, and all that. As they are doing through all this, one part of the mind is resisting it so much. Yeah, that is why the first chance not to go, the mind will not go. They will drop the very practice at some point of time. And to pick it up again is almost impossible, because the mind will say, what is the use of this? What is the benefit of this? There is no benefit. Either motivational class like unnecessarily I got emotional and I started practicing all these things. I should be careful not to practice any discipline. It will take to that. It will develop that wrong understanding. You are correct. Say yeah, Sriram. The first clarification. The second clarification is, you say mind indulges and like to indulge in things it likes. When the mind enjoys something, it's completely present. And yet you say mind is never capable of existing entirely in any act, even in acts it likes. How can it be completely indulgent or present in an act it likes, yet you say it's never completely present in any act? That's why I said, that's how I explained it by the mind. When it is in any act, in the act of its dividing, in any indulgence, because of the ignorant way of dividing, in every sense contact, it always brings an element of negativity to it. That is why when it is enjoying something also, it feels very guilty about enjoying itself. Why? Yeah, see, that is why it is so yeah. In every enjoyment, the mind brings in its guilt factor along with it, and ensures that it is not there fully. If it cannot, if the opposite doesn't exist, what is opposite not existing means? When I am experiencing something, yeah, Sriram has to be unmuted. When a person is experiencing a sense contact, to put it in a very simple way, when a sense organ is contacting a respective sense object, see a 10-year-old doing that. See a 30-year-old doing that. See a 50-year-old doing that. When the 10-year-old does it, there will not be any restraint or guilt associated with it. When a 30-year-old does it, a little bit of, how can I be? No, the division comes in. When you see a 50-year-old doing that, it is worse still. When a 70-year-old will not allow the senses to contact at all, but mentally sit and
contact it.
Mentally they will contact. That's why in the 3rd chapter he says, Mithyacharasya uchyate. All this is hypocrisy, Arjuna. This is not sense control. This is not restraint, because the mental indulgence is happening. And why I do not allow the senses to contact? Because of the mind's division. What is the division? That's why I give this example. See, a 50-year-old also can like a chocolate and eat the chocolate in the same way like a 10-year-old. No. Why can't they eat like that? But then as I am eating it, the mind will come and say, I am an adult. I have grown. I am a mature person and I should act according to. So much of confusion it will bring in, and what it will prevent? It will prevent from enjoying a simple thing like eating an ice cream or a chocolate.
That's why it's called a guilty pleasure.
That is correct. Correct. The senses is not doing that. What is doing that? The intellect will not do that. The intellect will say, you like chocolate, you don't have diabetes, enjoy it. What is the problem in that? So intellect doesn't do this. The senses is not the senses is not doing that. Because of my cold and cough, in a COVID-19 line, just the normal cold and cough, and COVID-19 இருந்தா கூட கவலை கிடையாது. Zoom மூலமா அந்த transfer ஆகாதுன்னு நினைக்கிறேன். So sometimes what happens is my ear goes, so I have to இப்ப நான் பேசுறது எனக்கு தெளிவா கேக்குது. Otherwise sometimes I have to. Are you able to follow? The senses says contact. There's nothing wrong in that. The intellect also says what is wrong in that. It is the mind that plays this dividing role. It is the mind that will want the contact, and it is the same mind that says it feels guilty about the contact also. The intellect will come and say, you like chocolate, diabetes irukada illaya? No diabetes, take it. What is wrong in that? Naturally, the senses will not want to take like how a 10-year-old will want to take. The senses of the 10-year-old will want 3 chocolates. The sense of the 50-year-old man will want only 1 chocolate. So the senses itself will tell you. The senses itself at some point of time tell you. Stop it.
1 second, Aravindan uncle. எனக்கு ஒரு clarification. So in this case, right? So the mind say likes the chocolate, when I thought the mind will enjoy having that chocolate even if it's a 50-year-old that once. But I thought it is the role of the intellect to tell that 50-year-old, see, second or third chocolate you should not indulge in. Whereas the mind has no power and will keep wanting that second, third, or fourth, fifth chocolate. But I didn't realize that even for the first chocolate itself, the mind, there's some inbuilt guilt into it or some division to it. That's what you're saying. But yes. I never recognized that about my own mind until now.
Exactly correct. At the first chocolate itself, the mind plays this role.
But I didn't realize it. Yes. Why don't we realize it?
Because the Indra, that's why I gave the story. The Indra will never want us to realize this. That is where elsewhere in the Bhagavad Gita he says, Arjuna, you are duped by your own mind. It will not want you to, because in that realization you will gain mastery. Mind can have a field day. Mind can do what it wants to do only when you are not aware. That is why the first thing that the mind does is to make you, everybody's mind does it to themselves. My mind first will make me unaware, unconscious. How it will make me unaware, unconscious? As I am contacting, it will take me elsewhere. Because in awareness, the mind will behave. Just as you tell yourself, I will observe my mind now. I will observe all the thoughts that is going to come. Observe. For the first few seconds, no thoughts will come. The child is playing, you don't tell anything to the child. Another example I am giving. The child is playing, you don't tell anything to the child. Just sit in one corner and keep looking at the child. 10th minute, the child will get very frustrated and it will come and tell you, what? Why are you
staring at me?
Why are you watching me? Why are you staring at me? It says, I didn't tell you anything. No, I'm just staring. No. Because in that watching itself, the mind gets restless. When you start watching the mind, when you start observing the mind will start becoming restless. Why? Because the mind is so used to it being the master all along.
So when we say indulgence, right? The mind indulges. I thought I had this wrong understanding, or I didn't have the subtle understanding that the mind can indulge and be completely immersed in something yet not present, which is what you're saying.
Correct.
That's very subtle.
Yes.
I'm not able to wrap my head around.
Yes, it is very subtle. That is why the reliving, the lingering, and all the thing associated with it happens. That's why the lingering, the reliving happens, because it has gained a particular enjoyment through one thing, and whenever it wants that enjoyment, it starts looking for that.
But it gained that initial enjoyment by being fully present in that act, right?
When it is contacting for the very first time,
right,
the mind is not at all present there. It is purely the function of the senses and no mind. That the perception is registered. After the experience is over, it gets a sensation of what we call as joy, pleasure, or unpleasure, displeasure.
Right.
Senses only register the pleasure or displeasure. Like Karela savudumodu, Parka savudumodu, it is a displeasure. Over a period of time, the displeasure turns into a, like they say, acquired. No, all are acquired only. They say acquired taste. black coffee, சக்கரை இல்லாம காஃபி குடிக்கும் போது it will be very, but then over a period of time you tend to quiet. I'm not discussing the other things also. Now what happens is when the first time a contact happens, it's only a pure sensory contact with the presence of, in the absence of the mind. Then only the registration is so complete. But the registration triggers a memory of, triggers a memory of, from the pleasure to from the pleasant to unpleasant, the memory, it triggers the sukha or dukkha.
Now I understand it actually.
Joy and sorrow.
Right, I understand it. When I have a kesari romba pidikum, when I have that first voy of kesari, I love it. Correct. But second, third, fourth voice consecutive, the joy starts decreasing because my mind starts comparing it to that first voy of kesari all the time.
Exactly correct.
Okay, I get it.
Exactly correct.
That's why passivation happens. Romba chocolate saaptoma illati romba sweet saaptona, we lose the joy of it.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah.
Exactly correct. This is how it happens. Okay. So at a point of time will come where all my senses would have become numb. Because of repeatedly stuffing it, my senses would have become so numb, but the mind is craving for it so much, and the senses have become numb. This is the life of torture. Availability of the object is there. The mind is craving it so much. Because of the lack of discipline, the senses have become numb that கண்ணுக்கு நேரா இருக்குது சார், வாயில வெச்சா கூட டேஸ்டே தெரியல. This is the life of torture.
Yeah, English is a very misleading language. Indulgence, I thought, was being completely immersed in something.
Correct.
Romba overly immersed, but that immersed nale I thought is being present, too present and too completely attached, but that's not the case.
Correct. That's not the case.
So my understanding of indulgence itself was wrong.
Yes, correct. Yes. It is based on just at the superficial sensory perception level you understood it. Now in this yajna, in the context of practicing restraint and all that, I went into the depth and deciphered it. Yeah. That's how it works. Okay.
Yeah.
The second contact, the third contact, the fourth contact diminishing. But the mind wants the first thing all the time. But the nature of the senses is to diminish. This gap is the sorrow. This gap is the sorrow, the pain. So what it does to relieve itself of its sorrow, it starts lingering. This is how it works. So yajna of self-restraint is a person is aware of this and avoiding all this. A person is aware of this and avoiding all this because the ideal that he has fixed is the absolute. With this, we have concluded the yajna of receipt of stimuli. Verse number 27, we are going to talk about the yajna of reactions. Now we have finished the yajna of the receipt of stimuli. Yajna we have covered. Verse number 27, which we will do next week, we'll be talking about the yajna of reactions within. How to do that? We are going to discuss it. Seriya? Vijay, sorry. Vijay Rangan, solungo. Type பண்ணுங்க. Vijay, yes, tell me.
Sir, இந்த இப்ப நீங்க சொன்ன கௌதம புத்தா எக்ஸாம்பிள் சொன்னீங்கல்ல சார், 3 ஹார்ஸ்.
ஆமா.
அதுல தேர்ட் ஹார்ஸ் ஓடது வைப்னு சொல்லி சொன்னீங்க. ஆக்சுவலா அது என்ன சார் அது மீன்?
குதிரையை கண்ட்ரோல் பண்றதுக்கு விப்பு வேணும்.
ஓகே சார். ஓகே.
The low quality horse has to be whipped. சாட்டை.
ஓகே ஓகே.
சாட்டையை வச்சு அடிக்கணும் அது. அப்பதான் அது நவரும். பெட்டர் குவாலிட்டி ஹார்ஸ் ஆனந்தா இஸ் அந்த சாட்டை சத்தம் கேட்டா போறோம்.
ஓகே ஓகே.
அது அடிக்கலாம் வேண்டாம், அந்த சத்தம் போறோம் அதுக்கு. The best quality horse is அவன் சாட்டையை கொண்டு வந்து இடுப்புல சொறி வச்சுக்கிட்டனாலே போறோம். He did not even take it, crack it and whip it. அதெல்லாம் எதுவும் பண்ண வேண்டாம். அதை அவன் எடுத்துக்கிட்டு அப்படி வச்சுட்டு வந்து உட்கார்ந்த sight of it itself, it starts behaving. That he calls as the high quality horse. சரியா? These are the three types of horses, Ananda, he says.
இன்னொரு क्वेश्चन சார், இன்னொரு क्वेश्चन. இது ரெஃபர் பண்ணீங்களா சார்? சாப்டர் 2 திரும்ப ரெஃபர் பண்ணீங்களா சார்? அந்த process of mind.
Yes.
அது என்ன வெர்ஸ் சார் அது?
Verses 62 63 of chapter 2.
Okay sir.
Verses 62 63 of chapter 2. It's called ladder of fall. அந்த ரெண்டு வருஷத்துக்கு பேர் ladder of fall. Verses 62 63 of chapter 2. தியாயதோ விஷயான் பும்சஹான் ஆரம்பிக்கும். அது தியாயதோ விஷயான் பும்சஹான் ஆரம்பிச்சு புத்திநாசாத் பிரணஷ்யத்தின்னு முடியும். சரியா? தியாயதோ விஷயான் பும்சஹ து புத்திநாசாத் பிரணஷ்யதி. ஓகே? சரியா?